Timothy Radcliffe said that what we experience today is a crisis in the language of faith in terms of trying to communicate to our people. And I tell you, I go around all over the country, in my vocations work, in my fundraising work, and in some of these kind of workshops. And, our churches are half full. And part of that's because people aren't preaching the gospel. And we got to step up to the plate and preach the gospel, and even the tough part of the gospel. Part of that's because people are preaching the gospel, but not doing it very effectively. They're doing it for them, for their generation. Just pretend that Connor's not even here. Okay? So that's why this becomes so important. How do people hear the language of faith? Well, I was talking with somebody earlier who mentioned, boy, there's not the kind of reading of the great literary classics, which you can often, in the past, draw from. Well, that's true. So what you do is you have to go with what is out there. And that's movies and films. Some of these new series that are coming up. There's a way then we have to draw upon those because that's what people are wanting. Either to put the gospel in contradiction to some of that, and that's part of the tough love part, or to draw them and say, well, is that really a positive representation of love, what you're getting over there and from the Catholic belief? But it says that you know their world, and that's where our credibility is. Use an example from the world. Okay, what I'd like to do now at this moment is just get a little feedback. Again, we're just broad brush strokes. With each generation, we're going to just go and get your theme, and then what was maybe an idea or two of pulling in your generation, knowing their world, knowing how they've been formed. Do we have any brave souls representing are you guys your builders? No, you're builders, yeah. Okay, well, let's show some momentum here. But, you're old. Yeah, you're old. It takes you a while to get to the microphone. Yeah, just one or two ideas that came up. Basically, what's your theme? And then what were one or two of the one of the two ways that you're going to bring in through your examples or illustrations, metaphors, images, linguistic references, bring in the builders. Testing 1, 2, 3. You might want to take that out. It might be easier for you. There you go. Okay. Yes? Mm-hmm. Yeah, they get hierarchy. They're not threatened by it. They're not disrespectful. They understand it. Yeah. Because this is the greatest generation, in terms of, I'm just thinking the Tom Brokaw book, even referencing something like that, but they would get how the country could have been destroyed if, the 2 world wars. Yeah. It served the country, yeah. Great. Yeah. Thank you. That's exactly what I want you to do. Just kind of get in their mindset and get a sense of how they relate to it. Okay, can we go to some millennials? Oh, we have a speaker over here. Oh, we have 2 ones. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Thank you. We appreciate that.
Also looking at the brothers generation, we kind of get in the mindset of what will be going through their minds hearing the gospel, and a lot of them probably in nursing home. Who's it? 87 is probably the youngest of this generation. And they probably may be angry at God for their family activity hurting them, or they might be upset about things that happen that some of the families have been upset with God, or they're upset with people take care of them in nursing homes or whatnot. So the theme of forgiveness and mercy, and then through those process, finding hope, trying to relay that message of hope. And kind of an example that popped in the mind is how John Paul II gave his hacker in the early 80s when he was attempted assassination. Mm-hmm. They would look to who's going on the faculty, the figure of the church, and he had this incredible example of mercy through this. So they had a hard time believing that it can happen.
This is also a generation that's, waiting to die. They're basically going to be, they're near death's door. Are they at home with their faith, with their God? What message would be here that would comfort them? Who would you point to? You could even point to a Cardinal Bernardine, too, that wonderful book, The Gift of Peace. The whole way he showed how to die with grace in terms of with his cancer. And again, John Paul, too. Going to the end. The beauty of embracing death rather than running from it and kind of hiding from it. But your generation would have to be concerned if you're preaching to them. What's going on in their mind about death? Are they ready? Is there anything to comfort them? Their lives of duty and service have meant something along the way, help to build the temple. Thank you very much. Very helpful. Okay, what do we have here? It looks like a slightly more energetic group than the 87-year-olds, but your group is...
This seems that the fit in very well with our group, especially the gospel. The part about when someone strikes you in your right cheek, turn the other one as well. As Father has on his chart here, one of the characteristics, values of this group is patience, but also flexibility and reconciliation. One of the things that seemed key to me, at least, was that hatred and anger and this grudge mentality are kind of the root causes of our self-destruction. And rather than being hateful or angry, we're called to really move past that and go into something else, which is the love of another person, a love of ourselves and of the other person. But it calls us to go beyond ourselves and kind of have that, I think as it says here, duty and commitment towards other people. And I think in these readings it was just very evident that forgiveness of others and forgiveness of yourself leads you towards becoming the temple of the Holy Spirit rather than the destruction of the temple. So
let me ask you this. Wonderful. What example from their generation do you think would be the most powerful example of commitment, of sticking in there when love and commitment were called for?
Probably the war.
Probably the war, yeah. Sure.
One question I had in our group was the characteristics that are described here for certain generations, how much of those characteristics continue for that generation through their lives as opposed to being changed or manipulated by future generations, by subsequent generations? In other words, the 90-year-olds and the 80-year-olds and the 60-year-olds now, how much of the characteristics described in their generation still remain with them and haven't been quashed by current generations?
Well, the best way I can answer that, I think, is it's very interesting. The millennials now, in some ways, are mirroring their grandparents or great-grandparents in terms of that they love the traditions of the church. They love our Catholic richness in prayer and spirituality. They're concerned about fidelity, So it's very interesting. So I don't think that we lose them. We continue to grow, but we're basically formed a certain way, and people continue to enlarge. We got a great learner here. Look who's here. You know, our Monsignor over here, still learning about preaching. He said at lunch, I always still want to learn. Our 96-year-old Benedict Ashley is running circles around all his younger brothers at the nursing home in Chicago. Just gave 2 talks at the University of Chicago. Still wanting to learn. So I think the learning continues, but the basic formation is there. But what's interesting, it gets passed on. And the youngest generation really looks to the oldest generation because they see something's missing in that formation in the middle in terms of kind of solid, Catholic formation, that there's some things missing, that the same kind of sense of foundation isn't there. So they're looking to their grandparents for that. What do we have there? They're fighting over who can get up to the microphone. They're so excited.
We touched basically on what Jim had said too on the war.
Okay.
But interestingly enough, the first reading talked about if you have to, reprove or correct your neighbor, but do not sin. And this generation, we realized that not only did they go through the war where they had to root out Nazis and come to terms with reconciling with the German down the street after the war, but they also experienced rebuilding what they had destroyed.
Excellent point. Yeah.
To Germany and rebuilt, basically Europe and Britain and whatnot after the war. So there was a thought there, and it kind of tied all the readings together very, very nicely for this generation because they're still very Catholic. They understand the core Catholic culture because they grew up with it. They understand the war and paternally correcting your neighbor, when things go wrong and seeing justice, but afterwards having the mercy to go through and to help them rebuild and bring them back to their feet and heal the way Christ would.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Very helpful. Okay, what do we have back here? And I'm just gonna to keep things moving. I gotta just take one of you. We're gonna have to hope this is the most brilliant insight out of that group. We have full confidence.
The baby boomers who
Okay.
are visionaries and seekers, and kind of what we got from them was 2 different things. On one side, they've been lied to about things, and on another side, they have a lot of hope. One way they've been lied to was they were told that social change would fix the whole world. Well, it didn't. Like the civil rights movement didn't necessarily change the whole world. That the sexual revolution would completely free women and men. That didn't happen. That World War II and all the other wars would eventually end. Well, if you look at it, those wars haven't ended. We're still in all kinds of wars. We're still, as Americans, trying to police the entire world. But then on the other side of that, there's a lot of hope. They've seen the fall of the Berlin Wall, all kinds of new technology, new medicine. They're living longer. So really, when you look at both sides, they're living in a lot of uncertainty. So what we decided was from the gospel that we picked out this line where it says, "But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your heavenly Father." And therefore, the way we would talk to them would be to hang everything on that love of God, and then from that, love your neighbor. So we would always go with the one true maxim
That they could agree on.
that
Because
has been true through the teachings of the church and through their life, that even though they've been lied to and there's some desperate situations, there's still hope. And that hope, faith, hope, and always ends.
kind of reignite their faith that some structure and authority is a good thing.
Right, that it hasn't all, because if you see lies and truth, you're going to hold on to the lie.
Right. Just like we always remember the bad things said about us rather than the positive things.
So, and to paint that picture for them so that they can look back on their life and realize that there is, as visionary and seekers, that they didn't fail.
Because what do we know about this group? They're idealistic.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's helpful. It's an honor for us to have you speak to us today.
We have the Generation X, and we talked about I think the difficulties in this generation, being rather disillusioned and tolerant, but almost tolerant in a sort of apathetic way, as opposed to, well, I'm right and you're right. It's more of a, well, it doesn't matter, there is no right sort of generation.
Yeah. Can be.
Take this gospel that has a lot of ideals and a lot of
what would be some cultural examples of what they do put their trust in? What do Generation Xers put their trust in now? Technology.
And their jobs, which are again failing them at the moment, and technology, which has promised a lot and isn't fulfilling.
Yeah, it hasn't given them the connection they thought would, the deeper connection. Yeah. Okay.
Say, well, maybe we don't have the. We were talking about who's the generation that maybe isn't even persuaded by reason to accept the gospel, but well, if you've tried everything else and it's failed, what if we try again? What if you take that leap of faith and say, let's give it a shot. Let's see what happens if we actually live this gospel.
Maybe we'll find the faith and community we're looking for. That's what that generation is looking for. Often an understanding of rules and regulations follows an experience of Jesus, and when we see the rules and regulations protecting an experience that began 2,000 years ago. But it's again how we approach it with a particular group. Okay, very good, thanks. In one level, this group, socially, their church, school, and home was all pretty much saying the same message and reinforcing it. Not true for Generation Xers or Millennials. Probably changing with baby boomers in terms of getting all kinds of different messages, and now there's so many voices. What do you do? Who do you believe? How do you make, the voice of the gospel the preeminent one? Okay, I think you guys are up. It's your big moment. Okay, yeah. They're pretty lively for Millennials, aren't they? I think we have more spunk over here.
Millennials are a very, they like to think of themselves as a very conscious and aware generation, especially in terms of politics. There's a lot of them being involved heavily in high school and college and trying to become very aware of what's going on, not just in America, but also other places. So we thought that this gospel reading and the first reading work well together because we've got a lot of conflict in the world that they easily relate to, that they're aware of. Egypt, ones in the Middle East, things like that. And so the gospel would be there to speak to them as a way of conflict resolution, but also at the same time it has to be more than just kind of a blind conflict resolution. There has to be something beyond that. So the challenge for them would be taking them to Christ and not necessarily to let's all get along or let's not fight, because they are much about peace too. We talked about how in Egypt a lot of young people were the ones that were there they wanted a peaceful revolution, which is also, like we talked about, kind of like their grandparents too, in terms of them being socially oriented to the point that they wanted to rebel, but at the same time they didn't, they still wanted peace at the same time. So we also thought that maybe you also want to localize this to make sure that the conflict isn't just something out there, but something that they can relate to. So you can put them in the shoes of, it's not easy to be in Palestine because it's not about an eye for an eye or tooth for tooth, which is very relevant to those people who have daily bombs and things and stuff like that go off. And so you want to relate that to make them feel it rather than, because there's not that kind of stuff going on in America a lot of times. So for them, the idea of conflict is sometimes a little abstract. So one of the ways we could do that is focus on the amount of divorce that's very high. There's a lot of conflict at home these days, and making sure that they understand that loving your neighbor even extends to your house. And so that was, I guess that's just what we had.
Yeah, and what do we know about this generation? They're in the middle of making choices. It's a world that says any choice is good as long as you feel good about it. But what they may not get is that the choices tell us who we are. And if I was, and so often conflict resolutions or dealing with conflict is about choices. I always remember in that second Harry Potter movie, I've used this before, Dumbledore turns to Harry and says, Harry, it's not your skills or your achievements that tell you who you are in the end. It's the choices you make. Now, that's powerful. Now, I could say that, quote a saint for this group, or I could, quote an authority or their parents. But, and there may be, this, depending upon the group, this group, too, would very much enjoy hearing about the saints as this group. But there's also, Harry Potter's out there. That's something that they would, wow, okay, I never thought about that. A way of just, again, pricking the ears and getting them to hear the message from a different lens. So, but very good. Okay, final thing we'll do, and again, we're just going to get a taste here, is now, this is the easy part. We've kind of gotten the mindset of one generation. Now we are going to put ourselves in the mindset of a number of generations. Okay? Now, what I want you to do is to go to another group. And here's the thing. You can't be with any of the people. Pretend you're one big group again of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or if you're the builders and millennials. You can't be with another millennial. You can't be with another builder. If you're builders. If you're a millennial, you see these people, Mark? I don't want you to see them near any of them. Run from them as fast as you can. Okay? So, begin switching. So what we're going to end up with is all the generations in one group. Yeah. Groups of 5. Now, wasn't that fun? What I want you to do now, and again, you don't have to be exact. As long as you got 3 or 4 generations, you'll get the point. What I want you to do now, take kind of that same theme we heard. We heard a pretty consistent theme about holiness, mercy, forgiveness. Those are basic things we're revolving around. Grab one of those themes. And really what you want to do is fight for your generation. Now you got to put a homily together. So have just a couple points, and how would you, around that theme, bring those different generations, use different illustrations. Okay? So just work on it. So you're going to begin with, here's the issue. A lot of times we begin with, what's the problem? And then grace comes to alleviate the problem, as it were. Okay? So in there, how do we describe the problem in a way that several generations will understand? Okay? So keep the theme simple, and then just how would you bring, what illustration do you use? Just want you to get a taste of what it's like to work it out together, because each group is going to be your own line. That's right.
The thing we talked about was the line, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, and just trying to give examples. So, I mean, obviously there's some that would sort of stretch across generations. What does it mean to love the terrorists? What does it mean to love the people who, we're currently trying to fight in the Middle East? But also then, for high school or middle school, what does it mean to love the bully on the playground who sends you home in tears every day? What does it mean to love the CEO who laid you off for a baby boomer? For an older person, what does it mean to love the family member who's never come and visit you in the nursing home, or who took your car keys away because they say you got too old to drive, or the brother you haven't talked to in 30 years?
That's excellent. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Nobody was left out there. Wonderful. Okay. Let's try that group back there. Yeah. Hold that up a little closer, my friend.
A little. We looked at the point of view of the Columbine massacre, and then afterward, someone on top of a hill put a cross for the 15 who died, and that just excluded the 2 perpetrators. So that was an example of loving your enemies, loving those who hate you. And we thought, that example works for all the generations. Especially for the millennials, what they have to deal with in school today. The millennials are likely to say that kids, baby boomers, violence, grandkids, great-grandkids, and things.
Right. Yeah, it probably would get through. At the same time, adding on to that, certainly, how do you, someone has a strong, we interned the Japanese during, World War II, and, I remember my great-grandfather talking about learning to love a Japanese neighbor when for so long they were the enemy. So clear. And even truths and stand up for your truth, but at the same time, what did it mean then to love what was an enemy? So those are some other ways you could bring it in. Okay, how about back there? Brian, we remember you. I hope you don't get in any trouble with anyone short-sheeting you or dead mouse on your doorknob or anything.
Our group talked about the second reading from 1 Corinthians. So let no one boast about human beings, for everyone belongs to Paul or Apollos or Kepha or the world or life or death. It belongs to Christ. And just going through each of the generations, there's, and especially in American history, there are men and women who've been prolific, who've really defined generations. So we've got a builder in 1904, so Teddy Roosevelt and everything from Panama Canal to the whole moose and moving on into FDR and the New Ideal, and then Kennedy and Nixon. Just the way in which they shaped, for better or for worse, the culture around them, and then even moving up into Reagan and then Bush and Clinton, just showing those type of even getting into modern times too, the presidents, just as an example of those people that have been those type of figures, and for good or for not, how people look to them for leadership, but in many times, especially with Nixon and others, we find how they fall short. And
Right.
if we put all of our capital in terms of not only emotions, but just investing them as humans in people that are not superhuman, supernatural, then it'll be fleeting. So, base those on Christ more than we do on a political party or on an idea.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. That's a great way. So your theme is really, in who do we invest authority and power in our lives and listen to, and and do they really reflect the values of Christ, and then, or are we totally dismissive, not knowing that people are light and dark? Somebody can be really wrong on this issue, really up, but on the other hand, be heroic in another. And are we mature enough with those nuances? And the examples you can pull, yeah, everyone would have a different experience of that. Some people think the Great Society, the war on poverty was just this horrible thing. Well, maybe it was, in the context of Vietnam, was a horrible failure. Maybe it wasn't instituted right. Who knows? Not really a bad idea, though. Not something that would be anti-gospel to try to do something for the poor. So yeah, to bring in those nuances. Someone mentioned civil rights before, and we have a black president, our first black president. Whatever you agree with or don't agree with, it's still a momentous thing. So yeah, but you can lead people to constantly look at the values of the world that they consciously or unconsciously agree to in their actions or choices, always juxtaposing them with the values of the gospel. Okay, well, I hope that was helpful. I know sometimes it's frustrating because we'd like to spend more time on all this, but that's not really our point here, unless we had 3 days. Our point really here is to get a sense of what's called for. And I want to tell you, this can really make preaching fun, in the best sense. If you're not afraid to say the tough thing when you have to say the tough thing, if you really believe getting up there that this really gives life, then to really take on not just what you need to say and how to say it, and to be true to what you believe, to bring in the faith, to preach the gospel, but to also be committed that it gets through. And it's not about catering to the whims of any generation. It's about getting beyond their defenses or a history that may not allow them to hear what we're saying. Because like Michelangelo, he really wanted people to see the magnificence of those Old Testament figures. Well, they didn't. They couldn't, the way it was painted initially. He had to do something differently so they could see the artistry he could see. And that's what we want. The beauty and art of our faith, the depth of it, to be seen and to be witnessed to. And the power of the gospel to live. That's what we're after. Okay, how are we doing on time? 15 minutes? About 10 minutes left. Okay, great. One final other little example is I often think there's, in the different generations, there's always a movie that comes along historically that everyone remembers and is powerful. I think, now, how many have seen The Passion of the Christ? Okay. How many have seen Jesus Christ Superstar? Come on, put those hands up. Don't be shy. Okay. How many have seen The Greatest Story Ever Told? Okay. That's great. Now, there are 3 examples. Just like socially and culturally a generation takes personality, those 3 movies, in many ways, productions, were very indicative of their times. And again, they're things one can go back to and draw upon, in very powerful ways. It just gives you a sense of what we're doing. Okay, so this is what I want to leave you with. Some suggestions for becoming an intergenerational preacher, and I put that benignly, but really there's no other kind of preacher today if you want to preach to all your people, because there's all these generations. Unless you get lucky and you just can say, I just want to deal this weekend with the silent generation, or I just want to deal this weekend with the Generation Xers. What I've given you is kind of that homiletic preparation chart, just something to glance at, to maybe even add to as you see things come along. That final column is just, it's about probably 5 or 6 years old, just some phrases, linguistic references, images, metaphors at the time I was putting this book together. Star Wars was coming out with this renewed movies, and Star Trek was back, and so you'll see some of those things about Beam Me Up, Scotty, and a few other things. But just cultural references. And I just keep that as a kind of a checklist. But you begin to hear those as you listen as a preacher. That's why it's so important. Read your scriptures on Sunday night. It'll make it so much easier to pull the homily together. And you'll all of a sudden hear in the news or something somebody says, and there's your homily. And when you need something more from a particular generation, you'll be looking to talk to your niece or your nephew beforehand to get their perspective. Build a generational lexicon. That's kind of what I'm talking about. I kind of keep a notebook inside my notebook, some free pages, just to write down some phrases here and there that I hear again and again and again. Just to be able to be attuned to when that might be powerful to use. I would never use it as though I use it. That would be inauthentic and fabricated. People see through that. But I would use it and say, you guys tend to say it this way. But the church says it this way, but it's the same thing we're saying. You see how that helps? And to organize an intergenerational preacher's notebook. Now, I put that together really in the last year or so. I had it in all kinds of files and everything else. I stuff it in when I see things. It's the best thing is when you see something, you see an article, you see a cartoon, if it hits you, take a moment to grab it. It really can come in handy when you're wondering not what you have to say, but how to get through. I found a cartoon the other day that was wonderful information on this newest generation, and I pulled it out and put it in my preacher's notebook because I don't have a whole lot on that newest generation. Of course, it's a cartoon with 2 first graders sitting together side by side, and one turns to the other and goes, psst, psst, how do you turn this on? And the other one says, you just open it, like the older people do. But that's where it's at. Most people are used to turning things on. And so, that was just a good reminder. And then every now and then, when you see, and they're doing a lot on generations now, when you see a generational profile on the boomers or on Generation Y bother, pull it out. You can read it later, but stick it in something because, you got to understand the people you're talking to. It's that third part of liturgical preaching, that third element, the gathered assembly. We got to keep studying the assembly that we're leading. Okay, the final thing I want to say is, in some ways, what's the safeguard in all this? How do we keep it about Christ? And I want to say the safeguard is, first of all, don't get caught up in all your examples and illustrations. I feel like I'm on and off. 1 minute, or to the next. You your introduction should be succinct. You have your hook, you bring people in, and you bring in whatever the theological issue is. And then as you discuss how that is a problem or a conflict or a challenge today, you draw on your examples. But you don't go on, ad nauseum so that the whole homily becomes lost in examples and illustrations and, the cast from Glee, But you may want to reference just to keep people with you. Okay? So the safeguard is to go back over that homily, see if it's true to your focus statement, and see how much space you give to your examples and how much space you're giving to what you want to leave them with. Teaching you want to leave them with. The gospel message you want to leave them with. Okay? And it all comes down to this, if you ask me. Luke chapter 4, when Jesus gets up out of the congregation, gets up, proclaims, preaches, sits back down in the congregation. That's us. And Jesus, if you notice, always looked around when he had something to say and said, I've got some farmers over there. I know how I can make this point about how the word is received or not received. Let me talk about the different kinds of grounds they have to deal with. And the kind of ground that's easiest to receive. Or, the birds of the air, the lilies of the field. Jesus went out there and looked and said, I've got to use examples all around me to get through. So this is not rocket science. It's not anything really extraordinary. It's just working smart and being attentive and intensive. So I want to leave you with our master preacher. He came to Nazareth where he had grown up and went according to his custom into the synagogue on the Sabbath day. He stood up to read and was handed a scroll of the prophet Isaiah. He unrolled the scroll and found the passage where it was written. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me to bring glad tidings to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim liberty to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, and to proclaim a year acceptable to the Lord. Rolling up the scroll, he handed it back to the attendant and sat down. And the eyes of all in the synagogue looked intently at him. He said to them, today, this scripture passage is fulfilled in your hearing. And now he's sending you. And as he came from the congregation and then ended up back in that congregation with that hearing fulfilled, that is your challenge, brother, as he did. So you go ahead and